If we would go to the MongoDB overview, you can immediately see all sorts of information here, like what role does the node have, so we can immediately see which one is the primary and which one is the secondary. It will tell us if it's up and running, whether it has the log percentage, how far it is behind in replication, and also the number of connections. Also, it gives us information about the system, so we can see what is the load average, how much data is going through the network, what are the amount of writes that we have, and over here we have our graphs. So this is our basic dashboard that allows us to easily look into specific counters, so we can see that what is happening in our system. So this is a really nice way of not only monitoring your system, but also trending. If we dive into the node specifically, we can get more specific information about the node itself, like disk utilization, network issues, disk space. We can see immediately what is here being the most resourceful process on our system, and we can easily go to another host and have a similar overview. The nodes themselves, we can shut them down, we can reboot them in a similar way as we can do that with MySQL. The Ops Monitor allows us to look at all the operations that are happening at this very moment at our MongoDB cluster, which is similar to the show process list in MySQL. And that also gives you a nice way of not having to log into MongoDB yourself. Under performance, we can see the performance ops counters. So we have a very good overview of what is currently happening in our system. We can see that there are currently some trends of inserts and the number of commands is increasing, and that's true because I'm actually inserting data in the background into this cluster. Backups. We have a backup manager for cluster control, and we included MongoDump in the backup manager for this. We can create a schedule for making backups, but we can also do an instant backup at this very moment, specifying MongoDump backup directory and press backup and it will make a backup for you. We have also backup management where we have previously created backups, and you can use those backups to start or restore your system with. Within the management section, you can change the configuration of MongoDB, and the nice part of that is that you don't need to log into MongoDB. We also have the templating function for MongoDB of the Mongo configuration, so all new nodes will use this template instead. Another important tool is the Developer Studio. For Developer Studio, we have all sorts of scripts. Developer Studio is our automation tool for cluster control. And it allows you to write in a JavaScript-like language all sorts of scripts that can look into your data, interpret your data, and then perform an action. So, for instance, if the number of operations would be too high above a certain threshold, we could, for instance, deploy new MongoDB nodes into our cluster. And that also means that we're basically scaling our cluster out automatically. In the log file section, we have the standard default CMON logs, the error reports, and the system logs. And system logs are basically the MongoDB error log. And that kind of concludes our cluster control demo. So let's go back to the presentation. So I hope you have had a very good impression on what you can do with MongoDB and how you can manage it using cluster control. and we'll move into the Q&A section. But before we actually move in the Q&A section, we have a last poll question. So JJ, can you show it?
We do, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Art. And before I start the poll, actually, just to remind you all that you can ask us questions at any moment by using the question section of your control panel. So if you have any questions right now on the content that Art talked you through, feel free to ask them now. We still have a few minutes where we can ask those questions. But we can discuss those questions. I'm just going to launch this poll for now, and it'd be great if you could participate in this as well. And this is to ask whether you, at the moment, feel that you have the resources necessary to manage a mix of data stores, whether you have MySQL, MongoDB, or additional ones. It'd be great to get your feedback here, and just to get an impression of how you're fixed at the moment with how you're managing your systems. So thank you for taking the time to participate here. And like I said, we also have a few minutes left still to answer questions. So feel free to go into the question section of your control panel and submit your questions there, and we'll go through them in just a minute. I'm just going to close this poll now for the moment and share the results. Right. So it seems that most of you are either happy enough with your current setup, but wouldn't mind some help and maybe some additional insight on how to maybe improve a few things, and then a good few of you are looking into options. So that's good to know and good to see, and of course we'll be happy to help with that. So feel free to contact us at any time with questions on your current infrastructure. But for now, I'm going to hide this, and we can go back to the Q&A session. And let's see, I think we have a couple of questions here. There's a question here, Art, from Nicholas, and he's asking which automatic tools are better for MongoDB in your experience? Which automation tools are better for MongoDB in your experience?
Well, in my experience, all of them are doing the basic things like deployment, managing your configuration. It really depends on what you're already using within your company. If you're not using anything yet, but you want to get started with it, I would advise to use Ansible because it's really flexible. And using the one with Ansible role, the Stouts Ansible role, really is a flexible enough to define them in your Ansible environment. Other than that, I would say that the Chef Cookbook is the most advanced one. So if you're willing to invest time into automation tools, I would say Chef is a really good one. If you have other things you want to automate, and you can also find really good cookbooks for that, go for Chef. But that's like probably a personal preference.
Great. Thanks for that. And then we have, let me see, there's a couple of other questions. There's a question here about force writing, even if someone doesn't have a quorum.
So what probably you mean is that can you force MongoDB to write even though you don't have a quorum? So going back to the picture of eventual consistency, MongoDB always writes something to the primary and needs the confirmation from the secondary that it has written the data. So if it doesn't receive the confirmation from the secondary or any secondary, it assumes that it is all alone. And then it's similar to any other clustered environment. It just dies. It doesn't allow you to write anymore to MongoDB because it's unsafe to write. The primary is no longer shared with the cluster. So it just assumes that it's no longer alive, and then it will just shut itself down. So that's a really dangerous thing to then force in some way to write to MongoDB, and MongoDB will not allow you to do that. Any other questions, JJ?
There's a question here around how the app might detect that a secondary node is out of sync, or whether that only applies, once an app connects to a primary.
Yes. So from your application perspective, you cannot detect that easily whether the second one of the secondaries is behind. You have to read, let's say, the replication lag, and then determine on that whether you want to read from the replica or not. The secondary nodes are really similar to MySQL. You can do in MySQL exactly the same. Just read how far it is behind in replication if you have obviously the rights to do so. So then you could determine whether it's safe or not to read from this secondary node. And then the primary node is always the most advanced node. So in that case, I would say from application perspective, if you are willing to do that, to invest time in that, just read the replication lag.
Great. Great. Thanks a lot, Art. I hope that answered the question, of course. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them now. We still have a minute or two left. But maybe in the meantime, Art, we can show the, some additional resources that that we can point the audience to. So of course, there's our we have a blog series around MongoDB. So feel free to check that out. We blog pretty much every day of the week, not on MongoDB all the time, but regularly enough. And of course, if you want to get started with Cluster Control, feel free to go and download it at the address indicated here on our website. You can download Cluster Control for free. There's a community version that you can use as long as you want for deployment and for monitoring purposes. And there's a commercial version as well that then gives access to the scaling and management features that make most of what Cluster Control is all about. And if you have questions on that, feel free to email us at info@server9s.com, and of course we'll be happy to continue the discussion via email as well. But I think for now, I think that's everything we have for today. Any final comments, Art, or are you okay from your side?
I'm okay from my side. I don't have. I think I spoke about everything in the scope of this webinar, and we had some really
excellent
questions. Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much, Art, and thanks for the presentation today and for the demo.
Welcome.
This webinar is part of a series, so there'll be at least 2 more around MongoDB, as Art mentioned earlier. So look out for invitations for that. And of course, we'll be in touch then with the replay details also, so that you can watch the session again if you like, and look at some of the information you heard about in more detail again in your own time. But for now, thank you for your participation today and for taking the time to be with us. Have a good rest of the day and good rest of the week as well. And we'll be in touch soon and talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.